was 18, wearing the same black dress I'd worn at my parents' funeral just days before, sitting in a tiny law office. Across the mahogany desk, my Uncle Dennis looked too calm, his suit perfectly pressed. The lawyer, a kind, tired man, cleared his throat and mentioned my college trust fund. Before he could say another word, Dennis interrupted, his voice smooth and cold. "There's nothing left," he stated, looking straight at me. "Your parents, God bless them, they spent it all before they died. Bad investments." I stared at him, my heart freezing. He then pushed a stack of papers toward me, explaining they were necessary to make him my legal guardian since I wasn't 21. I was too stunned to argue. My hand was shaking as I signed. When we finally left, he dropped me off at a rundown house with a dank, dark basement apartment. As his car pulled away, I heard him on his phone, the window open just enough. "Transfer the money tonight," he whispered fiercely. My blood went cold. I ran back inside, up the creaking stairs, and found Dennis in the dusty living room. "The money," I choked out. "You just said there was nothing left." "I heard you." He didn't even flinch. He just laughed, a short, sharp sound that hit me harder than a slap. "You heard wrong, Mara. You should be grateful I'm giving you a roof over your head. Now get downstairs before I decide you can sleep outside." My Aunt Cora, his wife, walked by and refused to meet my eyes, clutching her purse tightly. That was the moment the full, ugly reality hit me. I was totally alone, broke, and dependent on the very man who had just stolen my future. I retreated to the basement, not crying, but filled with a hollow, burning vow to survive. While unpacking the few boxes I had, deep inside a small chest that held my parents' favorite books, I found a sealed, worn envelope addressed to me. It simply read, "For your future." My hands trembled as I carefully tore open the seal. Inside, there wasn't a bank statement or a key, but $500 in crisp bills and a small, folded handwritten note from my mother. I recognized her neat, looping cursive immediately. The note read, "Mara, my darling, start small. Build something of your own. That is a fortune no one can ever take from you. We love you." Tears finally came, hot and stinging, but they quickly dried as a new sense of purpose took hold. My parents hadn't just left me money. They had given me a final instruction, a challenge. Dennis and his greed had taken the fund, but they couldn't take my will. If no one would help me, I would help myself. I crumpled the note in my hand and looked at the $500. I needed a plan. Later that evening, while staring at the bulletin board in the basement hallway, I noticed a faded flyer. "Community flea market, next weekend." I spent the next 2 days with the $500. I bought 3 old, scratched wooden chairs and a huge, ugly dresser from a thrift store. They were cheap, but the wood was solid. The basement, though dirty, had electricity and water, so it quickly became my workshop. I worked tirelessly, sanding the chairs until my fingers bled, applying rich stain, and repainting the dresser a soft, modern blue. I even watched videos online to learn how to fix the drawers. That weekend, I rented a small space at the flea market. People stopped, stunned by the transformation. I priced everything fairly. By Sunday afternoon, I had sold every piece, tripling my money. Strangers I didn't know cheered my skill and hustle, asking for my card. I felt a rush of pride stronger than any sadness. As I packed up the folding table, a woman approached me and offered a handshake. "I'm clearing out an old farm estate," she said. "I can sell you all the old furniture you can handle, bulk rate, for cheap." The deal with the woman was the break I needed. Suddenly, I wasn't buying 1 or 2 pieces. I was buying van loads. The basement of Dennis's rundown rental house truly became my workshop, filled with the smell of sawdust, paint, and varnish. I worked from the moment I woke up until late into the night, my arms aching but my heart full. During the day, I went to community college, taking business and design classes. I knew the education would be crucial. Dennis didn't bother me anymore. He had his money and only cared that I paid the cheap rent on time with the cash he demanded. He would occasionally stand at the top of the stairs, smelling the paint fumes, and mock me. Still playing with wood, Mara? When are you going to get a real job? I just smiled and kept sanding. Finally, I was ready to expand. I bought a cheap domain name and opened an online store for my restored furniture. 2 days later, my phone buzzed with a notification. First order. It was from a boutique owner in the city. The boutique owner loved the vanity table I sent her. She used it in a window display, and a local design blog picked up the photo. Suddenly, my work wasn't just selling, it was going viral. People commented on the unique colors and quality of the restoration. The orders started to flood in, not just from the city but from other states. I was terrified and thrilled all at once. I stopped going to the thrift stores and started hitting estate sales, searching for high-quality solid wood pieces I could turn into luxury items. My bank account, the one I had opened with my $500, was growing fast. I reinvested every dollar, buying better tools, fancier stains, and hiring a local student to help with deliveries. One afternoon, while setting up a small display at a local market, a stylish woman in a business suit walked up to my booth, looking intently at my name tag. She gasped, "Are you a Wade? Mara Wade?" They were heroes in this town. The woman, whose name was Eleanor, told me amazing stories. She said my parents, Mark and Wade, had been legends in their community. They were exceptionally respected, known for quietly helping families recover from financial ruin after the last recession. They had often given zero-interest loans and helped people restructure their debts. They weren't just business owners, Eleanor insisted. They were philanthropists. The idea that they would have spent your entire college fund is ridiculous. They were meticulous planners. Hearing this family secret, the truth about their character, made the hair stand up on my arms. Why would Dennis lie so boldly? Why would he claim they were irresponsible spendthrifts? The betrayal felt even deeper now. As she prepared to leave, Eleanor reached into her pocket. "If you ever need advice about the estate, talk to their old lawyer. He's retired now, but he was fiercely loyal to your parents." She pressed a brittle yellowed business card into my hand. The business card led me to an old, quiet building downtown. I found the elderly lawyer, a man named Mr. Finch, sitting behind a massive dark wood desk. He remembered my parents instantly, his eyes misting over. I told him everything. The funeral, the paper signing, Dennis's lie about the fund being spent. Mr. Finch listened with a frown that deepened with every word. He confirmed my intuition. My parents had left a 6-figure sum in a fully funded, protected college trust. It was more than enough. "Your Uncle Dennis came to see me right after the funeral," Mr. Finch said, his voice slow and heavy. "He presented paperwork that said you, Mara, wanted to sign it all over to him for management. He claimed you were too distraught to handle it. I thought it was strange, but the papers seemed correct." He slid a folder toward me. Inside were photocopies of the documents, and my blood ran cold as I saw my forged signature, almost identical to my true one, at the bottom. The shock of seeing my forged signature gave way to a white-hot wave of rage. It wasn't just theft. It was a calculated, heartless deception against a grieving orphan. I wanted to march straight to the courthouse, but Mr. Finch stopped me. "Anger won't win this, Mara," he advised, his hand resting gently on mine. "You need proof, and you need to build it quietly. A lawsuit will cost a fortune, and Dennis will bury you in legal fees if you don't have all the facts." He told me that Dennis was good at hiding things and that only a complete financial picture would expose him fully. He leaned forward, his voice a low whisper. "You need to find the financial statements from the trust accounts. They'll show where the money went and they will expose his actions for what they truly were. Fraud." The mission was clear. I needed to get into my uncle's home office. A few nights later I found my chance. Dennis and Cora were at a church dinner, and I knew I had a 2-hour window. My heart hammered against my ribs, but the rage fueled me. I picked the lock on the back door, a skill I had learned in my restoration business, and crept into the main house. I went straight for Dennis's home office. It was exactly as I imagined. Mahogany, leather, and far too neat. After 10 frantic minutes of searching, I found a hidden compartment in the desk and pulled out a manila folder labeled with my initials. MW inside, my hands shaking, I found what Mr. Finch wanted: account statements. They clearly showed the large transfer from the trust to a series of numbered accounts, which then fed into his personal business, Dennis and Company. Real estate. He hadn't spent it. He had stolen it. Just as I was about to tuck the papers into my jacket, I heard footsteps coming down the hall. It was Dennis. I barely had time to react. I dove under the massive oak desk, pulling the chair in front of me to block the gap. The air was thick with dust and the metallic scent of fear. Dennis walked in and immediately picked up the phone, arguing in a low, furious tone. "I told you to be patient. She's living in the basement and not asking questions. She won't find out. She won't find out about the land, I promise you." He was pacing just feet from where I was curled up, holding my breath until my lungs burned. After 5 agonizing minutes, he slammed the phone down and walked out, clearly still furious. As soon as I heard the front door close, I scrambled out, grabbed the folder, and slipped back out the way I came. I raced back to the safety of my basement workshop, my knees weak with relief. Once inside, I opened the folder again. Near the bottom, tucked away, was a single line that made me pause. Additional real estate holdings. Lot 47, Oak Ridge. My parents had been secretive about their land holdings. I had never known about any other property besides our family home. The documents showed they had owned a significant, undeveloped parcel of land, Lot 47, Oak Ridge, for years. And just like the college fund, Dennis had taken this too. The records showed he had sold the land just 6 months after my parents died, using the same forged paperwork to clear the title. The realization that he had not just stolen my future, but had also liquidated my parents' entire estate filled me with a cold certainty. I now had undeniable, documentable proof of his fraud. I flipped through the final pages of the folder, and my eyes caught the list of transactions for the land sale. The buyer's information was clearly stated, along with a signature. My stomach twisted. The buyer's name was shockingly familiar. It was Carla, my Aunt Cora's sister. The discovery of Carla's name as the buyer was the final piece of the puzzle. This wasn't just Uncle Dennis. It was a family-wide scheme, implicating my Aunt Cora and her sister. They had all profited from my tragedy. The rage that had been a slow burn now became a consuming fire. I found Carla's number and called her immediately, asking to meet. We met at a coffee shop that afternoon. She was sipping an iced drink, looking nervous. I didn't waste time. I slid a copy of the land sale document across the table. Lot 47, Oak Ridge, I said quietly. My parents' land. You bought it 6 months after they died, using my trust fund money. Tell me why. Carla's face instantly drained of color. She looked around the coffee shop like a trapped animal. She stammered, pulling her hand away from the paper. I don't know what you mean. Dennis handled everything. It was an investment opportunity, nothing more. He told us your parents wanted to sell. Please, Mara, you can't tell anyone. My confrontation with Carla was the spark that set off the alarm. She clearly called Dennis the second I left. The next morning, I received a certified letter from a major downtown law firm. Dennis had already lawyered up. The letter was short, sharp, and terrifying. It threatened to sue me for defamation and slander, citing my unfounded malicious accusations against him and his wife's family. He demanded I stop asking questions immediately. I knew this wasn't an empty threat. He was terrified of the truth getting out. The last paragraph of the letter was a clear warning, typed in bold. Walk away, Mara, or I will ruin you. You have nothing left to lose but your reputation. I immediately called Mr. Finch. He was quiet for a long moment after I read him the letter. He's desperate, Mr. Finch finally said. It's time for a powerful countermove. I think you need an ally. I know just the person. Your parents' former financial partner. Mr. Finch set up a meeting with Harvey Thorne, who had been my parents' partner in their financial consulting firm years ago. Harvey had a corner office with a sweeping view of the city, a very long way from my damp basement workshop. I was nervous, but he greeted me with a huge smile. "Mara, you were just a little thing the last time I saw you." He told me stories of my parents, confirming their integrity and wisdom, and he was thrilled to see I had grown up into a successful young woman. When I showed him the folder, the smiles vanished. Harvey's face hardened with disbelief and then a deep, familiar rage. He immediately recognized Dennis's patterns. "He didn't just steal from you, Mara," Harvey said, his voice low and dangerous. "He stole from the company years ago, too. Your father caught him, but let him go quietly to avoid a scandal. He's always been rotten." Harvey slid the folder back to me. "I'll help you, but you need to play smart. He's dangerous and he's well connected." With Harvey's guidance and my growing confidence, I aggressively scaled my business. I opened a small warehouse space for workshops, hired 2 staff members, and focused exclusively on designing high-end luxury pieces for wealthy clients. My restoration style was unique, and the fortune I had started with $500 grew faster than I ever imagined. Harvey taught me how to manage the money properly, how to invest, and how to create a legal entity that was untouchable. My business became my fortress. Meanwhile, Harvey, using his connections, researched Dennis's business dealings. One evening he called me, his voice tight with excitement. "Mara, I found it. A loophole in the way the trust was structured. Because he violated the fiduciary duties and used the funds for real estate profit, he may now owe you triple the original funds as penalty for the fraud." The potential for a penalty 3 times the stolen amount was a game changer. It wasn't just about justice now. It was about massive, devastating accountability. Mara and Harvey spent the next 3 months compiling the legal case. The folder from Dennis's office, with the emails, the transfer records, the forged signatures, and the documentation of the land sale, formed the unshakable foundation. Harvey brought in a team of forensic accountants to connect the numbered accounts straight to Dennis's profits. The evidence was overwhelming, painting a picture of deliberate, cold-hearted fraud. While we were quietly building this case, I saw a shocking development on the news. Uncle Dennis, with his perfect suit and smooth smile, had announced he was running for local office on a platform of fiscal responsibility and integrity. Watching Dennis on television, shaking hands and talking about his commitment to integrity and community service, made me feel physically ill. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. He was campaigning on a public mask of heroism while standing on the ruins of my family. I had to restrain myself from calling the news station right then and there. I knew that if I came forward now, Dennis would twist it into a smear campaign against me, a vengeful niece. The time wasn't right. I needed to wait for the legal documents to be filed. Then, one day, a local journalist, Sarah, who specialized in community profiles, reached out to me. She had read about my restoration business. "Your work is incredible, Mara," she wrote. "It's like you're resurrecting things. You remind me so much of the Wades, your parents, and the kind of good work they used to do in the community." The silent seed of an idea was planted. Using a burner email and an anonymous phone line, I started to leak my story, just hints, to a few local news outlets. I sent them photocopies of the forged signature without giving my name, and I tipped them off to the sudden large land sales after my parents died. I didn't mention Dennis. I just let the reporters connect the dots to his new real estate ventures. Curiosity grew in the local media. They couldn't publish anything concrete, but they began asking Dennis vague questions about his finances during his interviews. Dennis grew visibly nervous, sweating under the studio lights. The ground was softening. Harvey saw this and knew the time was right. "We can't let him start spending campaign funds on a major defense," Harvey said. "We're going to schedule a private pre-litigation mediation. We'll show him all the proof and give him one chance to settle before we file the largest lawsuit this county has seen." The showdown took place in a sterile corporate boardroom. Mara sat across a long table from Dennis and his high-powered defense lawyer. Dennis was arrogant, refusing to even look me in the eye. "My niece is mistaken and vengeful," he sneered at Harvey. "There is nothing to mediate." I stayed silent, calm. Then Harvey opened a briefcase and slid the entire folder, the one I had stolen from Dennis's office, across the table. Dennis's smugness instantly vanished. He went pale as he recognized the file. He began to panic, stuttering and trying to blame Carla for the land sale, claiming he was just following her directions. Harvey then pushed a small digital recorder across the table and hit play. "Funny, Dennis. You blamed Carla. But on this recording, which I made during our private meeting last month, you confessed to forging your niece's signatures yourself to speed up the process." The sound of his own voice confessing to forgery was the final blow. Dennis's expensive lawyer, who had not known about the forged signatures or the hidden land sale, immediately advised him to settle and settle fast. But Dennis, blinded by pride and a lifetime of getting away with things, refused. He stood up, knocking his chair over, and started yelling, calling Harvey and me liars and schemers. Harvey didn't raise his voice. He simply gathered his papers, stood up, and looked Dennis in the eye. "Too late," he said quietly. "We just filed a massive lawsuit against you. Your campaign is over." I walked out of the room with Harvey, feeling the full weight of the victory. I was barely back at my workshop when my phone rang. It was the journalist Sarah. "I need an exclusive, Mara. The full story. I'm ready to publish." The next morning, the local paper's front page carried the story. "Local candidate exposed. Stolen college fund, forged documents, and family betrayal." Sarah, the journalist, published the full truth, detailing the six-figure trust theft, the land sale to Carla, the forged documents, and Dennis's plan to ruin me. Public outrage exploded. Social media was flooded with comments calling for Dennis's immediate removal from the ballot and his arrest. People who had known my parents stepped forward, confirming their good nature and Dennis's long history of questionable business dealings. I didn't ask for help, but people were furious on my behalf. My small business was flooded with messages of support, and local citizens started a fundraiser. Donations poured in to support my legal case, even though I didn't need the money. The community was fighting the fight with me. The legal process moved with astonishing speed, fueled by the public outcry and the irrefutable evidence. Within 48 hours of the exposé, the police arrived at Dennis's house. He was arrested for fraud and forgery. His campaign collapsed overnight in utter ruin. Carla, facing criminal charges for her role in the land transaction, quickly broke down and confessed everything, confirming the family scheme. The court date was just weeks later. The judge, having reviewed the mountains of evidence, ruled decisively. The court granted Mara full restitution of the original trust fund, plus the triple damages penalty Harvey had found, and an additional sum for emotional distress. Dennis lost everything he owned: his company, his house, and his reputation. The very man who had tried to leave me with nothing was now the one who had truly lost his future. With the court ruling complete, I finally had the closure I needed. The first thing I did was buy back Lot 47, Oak Ridge, the land my parents had secretly owned. I didn't sell it. Instead, I decided to honor them. I transformed the property into a beautiful, quiet memorial park dedicated to Mark and Wade, and I built a large, modern workshop space next to it for young creators. Kids just like I was, struggling to find their start. I used the damages money to fund the Wade Family Scholarship, giving grants to young people who needed help for college or to start a small business. I was home now, not in the rundown rental, but in the house I bought with the money I earned. One afternoon, while cleaning out my parents' old storage boxes, I found their old journals hidden in a false bottom of a small wooden chest. The journals were filled with my parents' daily thoughts, worries, and dreams. I flipped through the pages, reading their gentle words. In one entry, dated a year before they died, my father had written about my creative spark. He wrote that he and my mother always believed I would rise above any challenge. He wrote that they knew I'd build something from nothing, and that the true legacy they could give me wasn't just money, but confidence. I smiled through my tears. They hadn't worried about the future. They had predicted my success. I made a quiet trip to their gravesite. Standing before their stones, I whispered the promise I had kept. I made you proud. I turned the $500 you left me into our future. The small business I had started in a dark basement was now a thriving enterprise, funding dreams and building futures for others. I was no longer the girl left with nothing, but a woman with everything she had built from her pain and her parents' final beautiful instruction.